Good evening. Welcome to the Spiritual But Not Religious Show. I'm your host, George Lewis. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I've got a especially good guest this evening, and my next week guest is Ken Seeley. Ken is the creator of the A&E uh, cable show Intervention. A really neat guy, very creative guy, and the work he's doing is helping a ton of people. He has a new venue now called Intervention 911, and we'll be talking to Ken next week. My guest this week is Sheila Applegate. Sheila is a seer and a channeler, and she's really worldwide well known. Just was in England channeling there for the in the English countryside, and I want to tell you a little bit about Spiritual Broadcasting Network, why we're here, what we're doing about the Spiritual But Not Religious show, and what our intent here is. One of the things that I've began to be aware of was that for people like myself who are spiritual but not religious, I don't go to a church per se. Occasionally I will. I don't belong to any particular belief system, and I also believe that we don't need a mediator to find our way to God, that God exists within and us within God. But because we don't go to churches, there's really no gathering place for us, no real meeting place for people who are spiritual but not religious. And so the intent here is to bring you the many varied voices, and it's very diverse, as we have a super diverse group of people and belief systems. And I think it's imperative on our future and the future of humanity that we begin to really enjoy our diversity rather than finding that to be a problem and causing conflict. So we'll be bringing you the many voices of that spiritual community as we move forward. We have several new shows on tap that you can tune into. We have Tales of Inspiration on Tuesday night, just prior to this show, at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Johnny Calloway and Tales of Inspiration. Johnny is a superb storyteller. Johnny comes out of Kentucky and was trained by the storytellers in the country stores there, who are some of the best in the world. So you want to be sure and tune in, maybe make Tuesday night an evening of watching spiritual content. Tom, how we doing? We got Sheila on. You know, give me just a second. I don't have my earphones in here, and if I'm going to hear Sheila, I'm going to excuse me just a second. I'm going to have to do that. I'm not sure where I've been tonight, Tom.
Well, you're here.
I just spent 10 days up in Michigan with my daughter who had surgery, and with my daughter's daughter who got married while I was up there. And so I'm not quite back in gear here as far as what I'm doing, so I apologize for not being quite ready. All right, we got Sheila on the line?
We do.
Great. Good evening, Sheila. Have I got you there?
Oh, yes.
Good. Hi there. Gee, I've been looking forward to this. We've been communicating for months now via email. First time we've talked, though.
Yes, it's wonderful to actually hear your voice.
Sheila actually writes for our newsletter, and she just does a spectacular job with it. And I enjoy I enjoy very much, Sheila, what you have written. I like your style and how easy what you write is to read. You also do a radio show, am I right? An internet radio show?
I do, on Co-Creator Network.
Co-Creator Network. You want to give that whole address?
Sure. www.co-creatornetwork.com.
And
we go live on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
great. And I really would recommend that you catch that show. So, Sheila, what I think I'd like to do is start out by having you give our viewers an idea of who you are and what you do, so that so our conversation will be a little more engaging for them and a little more compelling. Why don't you give us a quick bio of Sheila Applegate and like where you came from and how you came to be a seer and a channeler.
Sure. Well, I'm in central New York, and I actually started my career out as a clinical social worker, which gave me a wonderful foundation. I was a child and family therapist, so that sort of springboarded me in. I was always very passionate about spirituality and my own journey to spirit and wanting to incorporate that into my work. About 10 years ago, I had already studied metaphysical studies and opened up to be able to communicate with spirit guides and to do some healing work. And so it came to a point where it felt like doing the therapy for me, I was sitting on my hands because I knew that there were more things that I could do to help people release. And
Right.
sometimes we can talk things out as much as we want, but there's other energies that are needed to actually let go and release. So approximately 10 years ago, I left the mainstream work. I say mainstream, but I actually was working with the Native Americans in my community
Oh,
right
really?
before I left. So
Uh-huh.
it wasn't completely a mainstream situation. I was able to do a lot of spiritual work in that position. But since then, I've been doing individual readings for people across the world via phone and Skype and in person, and I'm able to communicate with people's spirit guides and loved ones who've crossed over. I'm also very passionate about teaching people to do this on their own. I
Right.
believe everybody can communicate with the spirit world, and it's our natural way of being. So I'm very passionate about helping people through what I use as guided meditations, because that is the process that worked for me and allowed me to begin to communicate with the spirit world. So I teach a lot of guided meditations. I have a lot of free meditations on my website, and really encourage people to take their own journey, however that is, to be able to bring spirituality into their daily life.
So you use guided meditations to help them to channel or to contact their spirit guides and so forth. Is that what we're
Yes,
talking?
actually, everything I do when I teach and through the guided meditations is helping people to communicate with their guides. I don't actually promote it as that. It's just part of our own spiritual journey. But in
Right.
every class that I teach and every meditation I do, I guide people into usually the sacred garden, which is really an inner reflection of ourselves.
Uh huh.
And it's a way for us to go journey inward and learn how to see and hear our spirit guides in the inner realm, which I tell people when I'm leading through a meditation to receive it as if you were a child being read a bedtime story by someone that you love, and just let your imagination go, because with time that will expand itself. The imagination is the gateway into the spirit world, and so if you just allow yourself to go, then it will prove itself with time.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, and the channeling interests me very much. I've channeled quite a bit with writing. I haven't. I haven't really. When you channel, do you speak in their voice, or you just make a connection, or how does that work?
Well, and I love that you say you channel in writing, because I believe so many people channel in this world, and we just don't give them that word.
Right. Absolutely.
Musicians channel, artists channels, authors channel. We're channeling all the time, and so to realize that that's just normal is so important. So when I'm speaking of channeling, there's different levels that I'm speaking of,
Uh huh.
and the first level, I like to use the expression of a television, and so a television is sitting in your living room, and it's hooked up to the cable, so there's thousands of television shows going through the airwaves at any moment. Whether
Right.
you turn the television on, no matter what channel you turn to, it doesn't stop those other energies from moving through that airwave. So the first level of channeling that I refer to would be just turning on the television and choosing what station you want to listen to in your own world, in your own vibration. So opening ourselves up and letting the energy flow through us, letting our higher self flow through us. A
Right.
lot of